Hey, I can kind of see you, but a raise of hands. How many of y'all are in California right now? There's a lot of you guys in California. I like it. How many of you guys are at the Palace of Fine Arts Theater of Renault? Yeah. How many of you guys are at a design conference? Renault. That's the Awwwards. One more time. It's gonna be the last time. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell your boyfriend. Don't tell your mom. Don't tell your business associates, because I'm probably gonna get a few referrals after this project is over. And I don't wanna act like I'm like the kind of designer that keeps on doing revisions after the contract is fulfilled. No. But, oh, that's a wrong step. There we go. But I'm gonna send you this file. It's marked final project PSD-_final2. Check your email. I sent it twice. I marked it as urgent. This the last change. Ain't no more changes. Unless we transition to like an hourly kind of thing. But of course, out of the few options that I sent over, you picked the absolute worst one. But that's okay, because I'm gonna take the very best ones and put them in my portfolio anyway, because I got good taste. Because I'm a designer. And we do designs, baby. All right, that had nothing to do with my talk. I just wanted to see if we could do it. Thank you. I'm Travis, and a few things about me. I'm a designer, mostly. Musician, kind of. Whatever. And an artist sometimes. But mostly, I'm a human. And that's really important to me, to like just be a human sometimes. So let's talk about humans. These are my friends. These are people that I've met because I have the good fortune, oh, this is the title. I have the good fortune of hosting Google's design podcast. It's called The Google Method, and y'all should open your phones and subscribe right now. And so let's talk about a few of the things that I've learned from the amazing guests that I've had on the show. And first we're gonna start with Jens Riegelsberger. Don't worry, we usually call him Jens R. Jens is a lot of things, but he started out at Google over 12 years ago as a design researcher. And this was my first interview that I did for the show, and I was so nervous. And he's such an eloquent person, such an impactful thinker, and he's also quite generous. And one of the great insights that Jens had early on in his career as a design researcher, like talking to users and seeing how they work, the way he described it to me, that he found that there was the friction that most people feel is in the seams of the product, in between things that we design, that we don't really take account for. This is a screenshot that kind of like really sparked him to kind of make a program called Product Excellence. And this is something we still talk about a lot at Google today. Product Excellence is something that we strive for and to achieve. And he realized that this, the way that we can get there is to stop thinking about the things that we create and start thinking about the people who use them. And so he instituted a program called Meet the User. And he invited designers, engineers, product people, everyone to just come and sit with people who are using our products and watch them and see what they like and see what they are frustrated with. And to this point, I think he's had over 1,500 Googlers come through the Meet the User program. And he talks about that moment where everyone just kind of has that light bulb come on and they're like, oh my goodness, these are real people using the things that we build. I'm not just writing code. I'm not just like moving boxes around. I'm impacting people. And that moment of inspiration, that moment of revelation is, I'm going to let Jens describe it.
If those insights involve people, it's even a bit more powerful because there's this added connection with another human being. It's not only the joy of the insight, but it's also the joy of the insight about a bit of humanity that you may not have been so familiar with. Because I think it's a very common fallibility that you feel like, oh yeah, I'm a user, I have people around me that use the product, I know how this works. And people forget how limited their bubbles sometimes are. So we consciously pick people from different walks of life to meet our engineers and our colleagues, because getting them a bit uncomfortable to the boundaries of their day-to-day experiences is useful.
Jens is incredible. I want to introduce you to my other friend, August. August de la Reyes is a really, really interesting person. I met him on his second day at Google, and after like a 2-minute conversation, I was like, can you please be on our podcast? He's an incredible thinker, and one of the things that he talked to me about on the episode is this framework of thinking about how products impact people, and it's called MDA. This is kind of often seen in like video games, and it stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics. And this is kind of like a layering kind of thing, and I'll explain it this way. In video games, we have the mechanic of, pressing the button, and then Mario does his kind of like jump. And how good does that feel when you press the button and see the response is how well the mechanic is crafted. And then you can start layering these mechanics when you press the run button and then a jump, and then you have like a horizontal jump. So the dynamics are kind of like this runtime moment where all of these mechanics are adding up to a dynamic of people actually using the product or experience. And the aesthetic is, how do they feel about it? What's their response to those dynamics and mechanics? The thing that he noted, which was so interesting to me, is that as creators, as designers, we only have control over one aspect of this whole stack. We can just control the mechanics. And I really love how August took this framework, MDA, and pushed it a little further and talked about what's the next layer. I'm going to play a quote from August here.
If we think about zooming in and out of how we perceive a system, from a designer's point of view, we focus mostly on the mechanic level. I think that's the thing that we design. And then zooming out a bit, then there's the dynamic level. And zooming out even further, there's the aesthetic level. And the question that I posed is, well, what happens if you zoom out further than that? Well, I would call it a state of being. In other words, what is the sum total of all your aesthetic responses at any given moment in time? And well, that's really your state of being at that moment.
August teaches us that the mechanics that we design cumulatively can add up and create and add to someone's total state of being. And I love that because, again, this deep thinking person is always bringing it back to, like, what are humans like? The same we saw with Jens. What are humans like? Let's show people who work on these products what humans are like, and August the same. I wanted to introduce you to my friend Roxanne. Roxanne is incredible. I call her Rox because we're friends. And she's a senior content strategist and UX writer. She works on flights. But she sits in this really interesting position where she's a writer, but she works really heavily with machine learning. And just really quickly about machine learning, like how that works. Machines have a hard time understanding humans and speaking to humans. And so I'll just here's an example. If I have a shoe and I want to teach a machine what a shoe looks like, then I'm going to give it hundreds of thousands of photographs of shoes. And then I'm like, what's this? And it goes, I know what that is. It's a shoe. That's how machine learning works. And it's really, it's not great at speaking to humans, but it's great at understanding patterns and making predictions. So we use machine learning in different ways. For example, helping you find the best route, understanding traffic patterns. For translation, making recommendations, where do you want to go for dinner, or what theme park looks amazing, or what time it's busy. And then also flights, which is where Roxanne works. And she explained to me something like where this friction happens. And a lot of people, when they're checking flights, they have a flow that's could last a few days. They go back and they back and forth, check it again, and oftentimes the prices are, they fluctuate. So Google used machine learning to try to predict where the prices will be in the next few days, where they'll land, if they go up, they'll let you know. And the responses were like, hey, why are you guys changing the prices of these flights? And Roxanne explained, like, this is a human problem. The machine is doing its job, but we're not translating it. We're not teaching it to speak to humans in the way that humans need to be spoken to. And the key component in there, again, is humanity, and is being able to address that humanity in the ways that we like to be addressed. So I'm going to let Roxanne talk about what the key factor is there.
It's a lot about empathy. There's a lot of instances with any product that are really about being a human and thinking about humans using the product. This is like the flag that I always start waving whenever anybody starts talking about human-centered anything. I'm like, wait a minute, let's talk about errors. I know. And people are like, what do you mean?
You're
like,
fun
should
at
we
a party.
I'm like so fun at a party. I love talking about when things go horribly wrong. What do we do? And it seems like a downer, right? Like if you're thinking about launching this exciting new product, you're super stoked and like thinking about the happy path and we're gonna like save the world and everybody's gonna get everything that they ever wanted for Christmas. It's gonna be amazing. You're not really thinking about when it just doesn't work. So you think about these situations from the user's perspective and how you would speak to them in that moment if you cared about them and wanted them to continue to engage with you. I guess that's the assumption, is that you actually have to like people, really like people, and thankfully I really like people.
The thing I like about that idea is, during my formative years in design, reading all the design books I could ever scrounge up and kind of watching all the videos and all that, it was all about the tactical skills. How do I build this thing? How do I make this thing? Maybe how do I present or whatever. But Rox is telling me the most important, fundamental thing is that you just gotta like people. This is the reason that we're doing this. And I'm like, wait, how have I been doing this long and I never even thought that I should like people? Next, I want to introduce you to my friend Peter. Peter Jin Hong is a cognitive scientist and a UX researcher. He was really helpful when we were doing job search. So the idea is that people who are looking for employment can type in what type of jobs they're looking for directly into Google, and we can find those jobs fast and easy for you and kind of organize them in the way that we think would be helpful to you. Peter helped in a product called Jobs for Veterans, which, and I'm learning this too, but when you're in the military and you're trained in a specific area, you're given a code. And that code kind of follows you around, and it describes your skill set, and it makes it easier to understand what you have been trained in and what you can apply it to. So Peter was instrumental in helping us understand that if we just make a place for veterans to put these codes into, then we can start describing and recommending jobs that are directly related to their skill set. And I want to let Peter describe why he did this.
We have a canvas of hundreds of thousands to millions, and you affect people's relationship with themselves and the world through these artifacts and projections. The reason I wanted to work on job search was helping humanity, and that sounds goofy, I know, but Travis, you know me, and that's actually been the way I almost fill all my Mad Libs for working on things, working on social good and working with .org and working with you on crisis response. But for me, when I say helping humanity, it's got an asterisk on it because I feel like we have such great passion for all the technology that we're enabling, and the technology needs to really be balanced with more understanding of humanity. Because that's how we can truly help humanity. If we know what makes us tick, what makes us scared, what makes us inspired, what makes us push ourselves. And job search is that, because job search is about one of the scariest things in your life, and about having agency and dignity and ability to stand tall and feed your family. And these are big things that, you know, when you just hear job search, you don't realize it means all those other things, but it does mean those things.
Whenever I hear Peter speak, I'm always impressed with how much he cares about how people feel and what they're going through. There's a lot of research that he did about how people can understand information in stressful moments. And you may know this, but when people are looking for employment, it can be really, really chaotic. It can be really stressful. We did studies where people would, they're called diary studies. Every day people would log in and just describe to us how their job search is going. Over time, we saw that people were telling us things that they weren't even telling their spouses. It's so intimate, and there's a lot riding, right? Your ego, your sense of self, and Peter makes this really great point that, you know, we're constantly trying to evolve our products and make them better, make them more usable, get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers, but balancing that technology with an understanding of humans and what it means to be a human is the only way that we can make sure that this technology is actually useful and actually worth it in the long run. And we need to have more of that inside of the things that we build. Lastly, I want to introduce you to my friend Margaret. Margaret is incredible, and she is the director of culture and community at Google. And she's another one of these people that I met at a dinner, and I was like, Margaret, let's just do this. Like, let's talk on the podcast. And I was so inspired with Margaret and her message. So this slide here, she had, in the middle of our discussion, I was looking at one of her slide decks, which had these 3 photographs on it. We were talking, and in the middle of our recording, I turned my laptop around and showed her her own slide. I said, Margaret, tell me what I'm not seeing about this slide here. And then she just kind of started telling me this story about her past and her history and about her father and her hopes for her children. And I was so overwhelmed by it. It was an incredible moment to be in that room that I took Margaret's podcast episode and I kind of remixed it with my toy, and I'm going to play that for you now.
My dad on the left, he has a suit on, and it is probably from when he was about 15. And it's the documentation, you don't see the rest of it there, but I know it's there, describing every birthmark on him. And he looks so serious. He's in a Sunday's best, right? Because he wants to come to this country. He's escaping poverty in the countryside. Many men of his generation were leaving China at that time in the 40s to make a better life and to send money back home, and that wasn't uncommon. that's what's behind that photo. And in the middle, that's what's behind
I don't know
that
how
photo.
old I am.
In the middle, that's what's
like
behind
4
that
or how old I am.
photo. And in the
My
middle,
dad and I are
that's
in the
what's
bus.
behind
I don't know
that
how old I
photo.
am.
And in the middle,
It's probably a
that's what's
rare
behind
day
that
off
photo.
for him where he
In the
can
middle,
take us to the park. He had 1 day off a week, and he worked 51 weeks a year. So it was rare for us to be able to go to the park, and it's one of the few photos I have like that.
Yeah, that's the drop.
It's one of the few photos I have like that.
it's one of the few photos I have like that. And then on the right, there's Sophie doing some salute or another. I don't remember exactly when that photo was taken, but she's probably about
5 or 6 and being cheeky as anything.
being cheeky as anything.
Being cheeky as anything. Being cheeky as anything. Being cheeky as anything.
Really, I think what I wanted to do in having these photos be side by side is just say, we're just a point in a continuum. Life goes, we're just a point in a continuum. 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 And really, I think what I wanted to do in having these photos be side by side is just say, we're just a point in a continuum. Life goes on. Life was here before us, and life will be here after us. What kind of contribution can we make? We all have our particular struggles, and we all have our particular victories. But in the end, it's what are we leaving behind?
She's incredible, isn't she? So this is like a little self-promo. I put those things on YouTube if you want to check them out, little music boxes. And we're done. Thank you for listening to my talk.